Tyson Summers finalized the last set of documents provided by Jason, crucial for Jason's management of a specific portfolio, among the largest under Ty's responsibility. This portfolio included the holdings of Wilson Graves, a billionaire investor and entrepreneur affectionately called Willie Graves. Willie thrived on using his wealth for hostile takeovers, acquiring stocks to gain control. Upon success, Willie's strategy involved rapid divestment to enhance his investment's value and involve other trusting individuals. Damn those who got hurt. Serving as Willie's lawyer and legal adversary, Ty successfully maintained Wilson's honesty and kept him out of trouble with the SEC and other federal regulators scrutinizing individuals like Graves. This allowed Willie to amass more wealth, benefiting Summers, Reinhardt, and Haynes Incan. Jason also made strides in managing portfolios for his other clients, aiming to gain full control within the remaining 2 weeks. This would conclude the 3-month process of transferring all of Ty's clients, excluding his special clients. Only Jason, Stacy, Reinhardt, and Clayton Haynes were privy to Ty's impending retirement. Ty reminded himself once more that it was time to let go and prioritize personal time. As one of the founding fathers of the firm, along with Stacy and Clay, they transformed it from a small storefront law firm into one of Columbus, Ohio's largest and most influential. However, this success took a toll on Ty's personal life, impacting both his marriage to Bridget and their family. Celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary last month, Ty and Bridget had 2 children, 19-year-old Jake and 18-year-old Tessa, both thriving in college. Despite the material comforts, Ty realized that Bridget's disinterest in their love life was a significant issue. While Ty's lovemaking drive remained active, Bridget attributed her low libido to a temporary phase, promising to discuss it with her doctor during her next checkup, which was almost a year ago. Their love life hadn't improved, and Ty, frustrated, chose to let the matter rest without further discussion. The source of his concern was Bridget's frequent trips back to her hometown of Mansfield, Ohio. She explained it was due to her mother's declining health, and her sister Bianca, who lived there, needed assistance. Both still resided in Mansfield, and Bianca, divorced and alone, benefited from Bridget's stay during these visits. Bridget felt it was the least she could do to relieve Bianca and allow her some free time. These trips started 6 months ago and now occurred bi-weekly, with Bridget departing on Thursday morning and returning late Sunday night. She maintained communication by calling every evening at 9 and ensuring her cell was always accessible. However, this meant Ty spent 3 or 4 days alone every other week, a situation he now disliked. Bridget left this morning for her latest trip, leaving Ty alone again. Despite his disappointment, he revealed to Bridget that he was working on a big surprise, ready in a couple of weeks. He even attempted to pique her interest by mentioning Stacy's involvement, hoping her curiosity or even jealousy over Stacy would make her stay and find out the secret. Bridget showed minimal curiosity, and Ty, not surprised, let it go and left her to packing. After their usual goodbyes, Ty left for work, knowing she would be gone within the hour. Later that day, Ty closed up his office, chatted with Rachel, his secretary, and walked down the carpeted hall to Stacy's office for a conversation before heading home. He knocked once and pushed the door open, a habit accepted by all partners accustomed to his unannounced visits. Ty greeted Stacy and suggested they finish work for the day, offering to buy a drink. Stacy expressed her reluctance to go home to an empty house. Another colleague, Roger, was waiting for her as they planned to attend their son's school play, where Roger Jr. had the lead role in Pirates of Doom. Ty teased Stacy about the play, but acknowledged that parents are naturally biased when it comes to their children's performances. Stacy laughed and agreed. At 46, happily married for the past 10 years, she reassured Ty about the progress on the project and declined assistance from Jason, noting that everything was on track. Concerned about Ty's upcoming retirement, Stacy expressed her wish to talk him out of it, emphasizing that he had been the driving force behind the company's success. Ty complimented Stacy's contributions and assured her that she, along with Clay and the younger team members, would continue to excel. He praised the younger generation's dedication, particularly mentioning Jason and expressing the possibility of offering Alice Chambers a partnership in the future. Stacy expressed her liking for Jason and Alice and mentioned that Raj would also attend the upcoming party. Ty welcomed Raj and bid Stacy goodnight, planning to see her the next day. Ty drove to his estate home in the Columbus suburbs, situated on a 5-acre lot and encompassing just over 5,000 scaff. It featured a hot tub flowing into a pool, a cabana, 2 tennis courts, and a spacious garden with flowers and flowering shrubs, providing color throughout the summer and into the fall. With the departure of the kids, Bridget had let go of the cook and maid, leaving the house mostly empty. Acknowledging that it was too large for the two of them, Bridget agreed they hadn't committed to it, but suggested it was time to consider moving into something smaller. Maybe they should give it a couple more years, she proposed. Ty parked in the 4-car garage and entered the kitchen, where he placed a frozen dinner in the microwave before changing into casual clothes for the evening. Returning down the steps, he heard the landline ring, hoping it was related to one of his ads, as it was too early for Bridget to call. Answering the call, he was pleased to discuss his boat, a 32-foot powered sailboat moored at Lake Erie in the summer and fall, winter-stored at a facility on the lake. After a fruitful discussion with someone who had taken the boat for a run with the marina owner covering for Ty, the deal was finalized. An agreement was made to send a cashier's check for the agreed-upon price to a post office box number Ty provided. Once the check was received, the title to the boat would be available at the marina. The purchaser had reviewed the title when taking the boat out for a trial run. Everything was in place. Bridget, who had never liked the boat and hadn't been out with Ty in years, would be pleased. With the boat sold and his Jaguar and Audi promised to successful high bidders, there was little left to worry about. 2 weeks from today, everything would be in place for his retirement. The house might take time to sell, but by then, Ty and Bridget would be in the smaller bungalow, ready for showings. He had already moved some furniture there, and any additional pieces could be purchased as needed. Ty mechanically consumed the frozen dinner and decided to relax with mindless TV and snacks. Taking a bottle of cold Miller Lite to the entertainment room, he opted for adult content, contemplating the lack of imagination in the scenes as the actors repeated the same actions in the same way. The movie failed to arouse him enough to take matters into his own hands. While the film unfolded, Ty pondered why the actors all followed the same script, gazing into the camera without any imaginative flair, merely aiming for titillation. He lacked the enthusiasm to engage in personal activities. At 9, Bridget phoned, and Ty answered, asking about any issues getting there. Bridget assured him of an easy trip and mentioned that her mom was doing a little better, but her sister Bianca was stressed. She suggested staying an extra day if it was okay with Ty. Despite feeling a clench in his stomach, Ty dismissed the discomfort and agreed, telling Bridget to do what she thought was best. He mentioned that he would stay at work a little longer, as it was lonely without her. Ty also inquired about Monday, asking if she needed anything and noting that she didn't take much with her. Bridget explained that she had things left behind and assured Ty that she would be fine. She then brought up the surprise he had mentioned earlier, expressing anticipation to find out what it was. Ty, somewhat surprised by her interest, informed her that it was right on schedule, with Stacy almost done with her part, and the rest already in place. Bridget promised to call him tomorrow night and said goodnight, ending the call with a simple, "I love you." Observing Bridget's eagerness to end the calls quickly, Ty noted that she didn't reciprocate his "I love you" with more than a good night. Despite this, he smiled, attributing her quick endings to her potential busyness with her mother. Ty then reflected on Bridget's family dynamics, noting the dysfunction and his own lack of fondness for her mother and sister Bianca, who had been divorced for cheating. So, the rest of my weekend alone continues, Ty thought to himself to occupy himself. He called the kids, talked with them for an hour or more, reminding them of his summons for them to come down in 2 weeks, and then just let himself go. He fell asleep on the couch and woke during the middle of the night with a stiff neck. He went to bed and slept without dreams. That was unusual, but Ty welcomed it. Lately, his dreams had not been pleasant. The next 2 weeks passed as normal, with Ty working to finish all his cases and make sure Jason was up to speed on all of them. He spent most of that second week calling his clients and letting them know of his pending retirement. They were, for the most part, happy for him and willing to work with Jason. A few wanted assurances from either Stacy or Clayton, and he made sure they were contacted right away. Things were all in place by that final Thursday when Bridget left for Mansfield. Ty had managed to keep his pending retirement secret from Bridget as planned. She rarely asked about his work anymore, so it was not much of a problem. In addition, she had forgotten about the surprise, and Ty didn't bring it up again before she left. He would mention it Sunday morning when she called to tell him she was about to leave, especially if she decided to stay an extra day again. Either way, Ty was prepared. Friday marked Ty's ultimate day, filled with bustling activity. Collaborating with Rachel, they cleaned the house and transferred paper files to Jason. Following a few more phone calls, Ty instructed Rachel to shift all his new calls to Jason, aligning with his plan. Having assigned Jason his secretary, Rachel had experience working with her. Ty's last morning task was telling Stacy to set things in motion, and she affirmed readiness. Though she left for the courthouse later that morning, Stacy promised to return in time for the retirement party at the Radisson Hotel. Despite everyone knowing Bridget couldn't attend, it didn't delay the proceedings, promising an enjoyable time. Ty left immediately after lunch to address several necessary tasks, and by 3 that afternoon, everything was in place. The final papers for the house were signed, and movers were already on their way, committed to finishing by late Saturday afternoon. Once the movers finished, the crew Ty hired to clean the place thoroughly would arrive, with orders to complete the task by that evening. They were promised a bonus if they finished on time. Realtors assured Ty that the "For Sale" sign would be in the front yard by late tomorrow, revealing a listing of interested parties who wished to view the property starting the following Monday. To their satisfaction, Ty had competitively priced it for a quick sale. The last task for Ty was ensuring that all financial arrangements were in place. Bridget and he had 2 separate accounts, aside from the joint ones, each with their credit card. It was Ty's insistence that they carried only 1 card each, disapproving of running a credit balance. Bridget, adept at financial management, was never frivolous with money. She skillfully managed their accounts, aware of Ty's private business accounts managed by his company. Unaware of Ty's accounts at the firm, Bridget, over the years, had neither inquired nor remembered. Retiring, Ty closed all joint accounts carrying both their names, transferring the retirement account to a new brokerage. Ty intended to manage all their joint affairs in cash temporarily, or at least until they had settled on everything. Since the new home would be located outside the States, Ty moved the accounts beyond the U.S., having already opened an online account with an international bank with outlets in Europe and South America. Ty was confident that Bridget would easily adapt to the change, as she was very intelligent about money matters. Finally, Ty confirmed that the tickets were in hand, contemplating spending the next several months with Bridget in a beautiful Costa Rican resort. Sun, sand, swimming, sailing, horseback riding, they had it all. Ty, having made a solo trip to the resort to confirm its authenticity, instructed Rachel to book the trip and make the reservations, desiring everything to be confirmed by the time of his retirement. Tyson was quite prosperous, accumulating substantial wealth from handling high-profile cases for affluent clients, charging accordingly. His clients, recognizing his expertise, retained him with substantial retainers. Ty invested his earnings in high-risk accounts, yielding significant returns over the years. As a lawyer, he leveraged his legal knowledge to move most of his money into offshore accounts legally, without any agreements with the U.S. These accounts remained intact, unbeknownst to Bridget, adding an element of surprise. If she were aware, she would be astonished at their value. Importantly, this money was outside the States, not subject to U.S. tax laws or the U.S. courts, had ensured everyone in the firm kept it quiet. Despite Bridget suggesting retirement, it had been dropped over the past year. Ty believed his retirement would please her, given her complaints about the time he spent at work. He informed everyone that it would be a surprise for Bridget, with plans to announce everything on Sunday night when she returned. Ty was confident she would be home Sunday, intending to initiate the surprise during her morning call. So far, everything had gone perfectly. The party was enjoyable, with Ty dancing with all the women and talking to all the men, sharing war stories of their most interesting cases. Jason spent most of his time around Ty, ensuring nothing important escaped his notice. Ty thought highly of Jason, foreseeing him as a valuable asset to the firm. Stacy and Clay, privy to all his plans, were sworn to secrecy, As his attorneys, Stacy subtly expressed pleasure in what he was doing. Ty danced with her, discussing the final steps. Stacy assured Ty that everything was ready for the surprise, documenting checks and amounts to ensure Bridget's surprise and Ty's satisfaction. Ty expressed confidence in Bridget enjoying the surprise, and Stacy sarcastically whispered her agreement. Ty laughed and shared that he had tickets for a Costa Rica resort with plans to leave Sunday night. He promised to call her with a permanent number, but mentioned that his new cell would be active in the meantime. He suggested Roger and Stacy do something similar. Stacy replied that she enjoyed what she was doing too much to quit at the moment. Ty encouraged her to tell Clay that he was sorry for not including him in all their plans. Ty stayed at the party until almost midnight before leaving. He missed Bridget's call, but found a voicemail. Bridget informed Ty that she was going to her mom's that night, asking him not to call her there to avoid waking her mother. She explained that her mother was tired all the time and needed rest. Bridget promised to call the next night and asked Ty to be home. She bid him good night. As Ty expected, she wouldn't call tonight after leaving her message. He spent the evening packing his clothes and ensuring Bridget's belongings were neatly packed. With limited time before Sunday night, Ty aimed to avoid return trips after the movers finished tomorrow. Careful and methodical, he packed her things, ensuring a smooth process without room for complaints. He planned to stay at the bungalow tonight and ensure all calls were forwarded to his new cell, starting tomorrow. Once he had transferred everything to the bungalow, Ty wrapped up his tasks, made a phone call to confirm the last piece of the surprise was in place, and then went to bed. Pleasantly tired from the party and on edge, he hoped nothing would go wrong as he fell asleep. Saturday marked the packing and moving of the furniture from their home. Though somewhat sad, Ty shrugged his shoulders and left the movers to their work. He was going back to the bungalow to meet their kids, arriving right around noon, and Ty needed to go over his plans with them to avoid surprising them too much. He had given them a hint of his retirement, but withheld details about Costa Rica or anything else. Now was the time to bring them up to date. He had to extract promises from them not to call Bridget and spoil his surprise, thinking they would be okay with that. When they arrived, he welcomed them inside, sat them down to begin filling them in. Making it short and to the point, he answered all their questions and gave details when they asked for them. Neither Jake nor Tessa were happy with what he was doing, but he assured them that their college tuition was taken care of and that they would always be welcome home, wherever that was. He reassured them that his retirement was something both he and Bridget had discussed and agreed upon as the right time. They wanted to talk to Bridget, but he made them promise to wait until Sunday night. When she got home, they finally agreed. They all went out to dinner that evening and kept quiet when Ty answered the 9 o'clock call from Bridget. She kept it short, as usual, but didn't mention staying any longer, so he still expected her. Sunday night, after the call, the kids once again discussed his plans, wanting to be sure he still wanted to proceed. Ty assured them he was fine. When they went to sleep in the spare room with twin beds, he made a phone call to confirm the movers were done, and the cleaning crew was scheduled. Both were affirmative, and Ty was pleased. One final call, and he was done for the night. Sunday was a day when little had to be done, and most everything was ready. He checked the house and found all in place. The movers and cleaners had left the place spotless and ready to show. He drove back to the bungalow and waited for the call from Bridget, telling him she was ready to leave. He expected her to call at her normal time, between 10 and 10:30. The kids had gone out to be with some of their friends from home, so Ty was alone when she called. He answered after the first ring. Ty nervously asked Bridget if she was ready to start for home. She responded that she was just beginning and explained that she would like to stay a few more days to give her sister Bianca more time to do some things. Bridget's voice was strained, as if she expected Ty to object, well aware that he would not like her request. Ty heard the words, and for the first time felt the anger that he had been holding in check for the past several months, struggling to break free. She wanted to stay a few days longer. Why? Well, he knew now, didn't he? He had known for over 3 months now, long enough to begin planning his surprise. Now was the time to bring his surprise to the front. Now it was time to do what he had planned for the past 3 months. Once he found out for sure. Now it was time. As he reached this decision, Ty's anger finally surfaced, having kept it in check for so long. With the anger making it difficult to speak without shouting, he responded to Bridget's request by expressing that he wouldn't mind her spending a few more nights, sarcastically referring to her lover, Kevin. Ty confronted her about her involvement with both Kevin and another man, Ben, stating that it bothered him. His voice rose in anger, and he struggled to restrain himself from screaming at her. Ty accused her of carrying on these relationships for the past 6 months or longer, expressing his frustration at having to pretend it was nothing. Silence followed from the other end, broken only by a sob, and then the phone went dead. Ty stared at the phone in his hand, as if it were a snake about to strike. He realized that Bridget had hung up, and that was an unexpected surprise. He finally placed the offending instrument on the table, his hand trembling with remaining anger. She hung up, and he had no outlet for his pent-up anger. As Ty slumped into the chair beside the table, his phone rang sharply. He stared at it uncomprehendingly as the sound reverberated from the walls. The disposable phone he had purchased for this purpose continued to ring, not having voicemail. Finally picking it up, he pushed the talk button. Yes, was all he could get out. His anger had burned out with the sudden end of it all. He had been primed for an argument or a shouting match, a screaming match between the cheating wife and her scorned husband. Her abrupt termination caught him by surprise and extinguished his anger like a bucket of water on a flame. Now he was numb, dead inside, and numb with the pain he had been holding back with his plan of action. Without the cathartic outlet for his anger and hurt, he was suddenly helpless to stop the piercing pain that clutched at his heart. Bianca's angry voice came through the tiny speaker, urging Ty not to hang up and expressing concern for Bridget, who was described as a wreck and almost hysterical. She questioned Ty about what he had said to Bridget and what he had done to cause her extreme reaction. Ty redirected his anger towards Bianca, viewing her as a full partner in Bridget's betrayal and as guilty as his cheating wife. He sarcastically informed Bianca that he had simply told Bridget to stay as long as she liked, to spend extra time with her lover, Kevin Clark. Ty accused both Bianca and Bridget of being involved with Ben Stinson and Kevin, detailing their rendezvous at a motel. He expressed anger, stopping himself from screaming at Bianca, and dismissed her plea for him to let Bridget explain. Bianca tried to defend Bridget, insisting it wasn't what Ty thought, and describing the situation as a stupid mistake for which she was equally at fault. She pleaded with Ty not to do anything drastic and urged him to wait until Bridget could talk to him. Ty, however, remained adamant, revealing that someone would be there when Bridget arrived, but it wouldn't be him. He accused Bridget of discarding their marriage and stated that she wanted to continue the affair with Kevin. Despite Bianca's pleas, Ty informed her that he had already told their children about the situation, including the weekends when Bridget claimed to be taking care of her mother. Ty asserted that the children had taken the news surprisingly well. In response to Bianca's desperate appeal for hope and reconsideration, Ty reiterated that it was Bridget and Bianca who had discarded their family. Ty bid goodbye to Bianca and mentioned saying goodbye to her mother, noting that she never liked him, and now she must be laughing her skinny buns off. Ty disconnected, then looked around the small bungalow for the last time. Bridget will love it, he thought to himself. Then he laughed at the thought. He turned off all the lights, put the spare keys on the table along with the letter to Bridget, and went out the front door. He pulled the door shut, got into his rental car, and drove to Rachel's apartment. She was waiting in front of the building for him as he pulled up. He got out, loaded her 3 suitcases into the back of the car, and then held the door as she climbed in. She smiled up at him as he shut the car door. He walked around to the driver's side and slid in. Rachel expressed her readiness for the situation, mentioning the challenge of seeing him every day at the firm without being able to touch or talk to him. She credited Bridget for throwing Ty away, allowing her to snap him up and enjoy their weekends together. They drove away from Bridget's story, and Rachel revealed that when she called Ty to ask if he minded her staying a couple more days, she had a strange feeling that it might not be a good idea. She shared her conversation with Bianca, who laughed at the idea of spending more nights with Kevin and Ben. Rachel admitted feeling a twinge of guilt when thinking about her time with both of them, but that guilt failed to survive her thoughts of lust. She described a thrill of wetness between her legs when recalling the moments with Kevin and Ben. I shuddered once and picked up the phone. The conversation started as usual, Ty asking me if I was coming home. He sounded so normal, reminding me that this was a world that Ty knew nothing about and that gave me courage to do what I knew I wanted. I went for it, asking him if he minded if I stayed a couple of days. I looked at Bianca when I did, and her grin reassured me that I was doing the right thing. As I waited for his normal answer to do whatever made me happy, I thought once again to myself that Ty wouldn't mind, and he would never know what I was really doing. I would never let him find out because it would hurt him too much. I loved Ty. That was real. But lovemaking with him had lost its appeal to me, and now I had found an outlet that allowed me to continue to love my husband, but enjoy lovemaking with someone else. With him, I had found a wild side to myself that I never expected. I was thoroughly caught up in the illicit pleasure he gave me. I was pleased at myself, my own pleasure driving my lust to spend just 1 or even 2 more nights with Kevin and Ben. I was already imagining our night together, and I was becoming warm at the thought, until those words came out of the speaker and directly to my gut, destroying my world. Ty questioned why he should mind Bridget wanting to spend more nights with her lover Kevin, mentioning her involvement with both him and another guy, Ben. Ty expressed uncertainty about the duration, wondering if it had been 6 months or longer. He conveyed his frustration, feeling like he was supposed to pretend it was nothing. Bridget couldn't speak in response to Ty's accusations. I was frozen in fear and panic. I slammed the phone down, and I let out a loud sob. Just one, that's all. I was able to get out before it all became clear to me. Oh God, he knew, and my life was over. I was going to lose the only man I ever loved. I had to get home. I had to leave now to catch him before he had time to do something terrible. I grabbed my car keys and ran out of Bianca's kitchen. I started my car and backed out of her drive. I turned and headed toward the interstate and home. I had to get home. I had to. The drive usually took me 3.5 to 4 hours to make, but now I was pushing my car as fast as it would go. I was immune to any threat from the police who patrolled the interstate, and I cared nothing for speed limits. I had to get home before Ty had time to leave me. I had to talk to him, tell him that I loved him, and that I was a fool. I had done something stupid and selfish, but it didn't mean anything to me. Kevin and Ben were already gone. I'd never see them or Bianca again as long as I lived. I would tell him that I would give up everyone else if he would stay with me. Over and over, I rehearsed the words I would use to persuade him not to throw me away. I was seduced by Bianca and her lifestyle, and the lack of my lovemaking drive was a problem that she told me would disappear if I let myself go with someone who I didn't have to please or who I didn't care about. She convinced me that this would reawaken my lovemaking drive and that Ty would benefit. I was just going to try to get my drive back. But then I was seduced by the lust and the thrill of doing something nasty. It would revive me, and I would carry that back to my marriage bed with my husband. I was pleased at that. It would work. Ty would listen. He had to. 100 miles later, I asked the question Ty would ask. Why didn't any of that lust carry over? Why had we not made love in those 6 months since I had begun my affair? That was a question I had no answer for. I had to think of one. I had to think. I was still trying to find the words to answer that question. When I pulled into the driveway of our home, I was surprised to see 4 cars sitting in our driveway. I recognized the 2 cars belonging to my children, and I was surprised to see them there. But almost as quickly, a feeling of dread crept over me at their presence. I drove around them onto the grass and slid to a stop and clambered out of my car to run toward the house. As I did, I saw someone get out of one of the strange cars and move to intercept me at the front door. I ignored this man and reached for my keys. He tried to stop me, but I pushed him aside and slid my key into the lock. It didn't work. I tried again, over and over, but it wouldn't work. I threw it on the porch and held my face in my hands and began crying. I turned to the door and began pounding on it with my fists. I pounded until the pain in my hands forced me to stop. I looked around to see the man who got out of the car still standing there. He asked me if I was Mrs. Tyson Summers, and I nodded my head yes. He handed me an envelope and said in a low voice, "You are served, madam." He then took another, smaller envelope and handed that to me. "These are the keys to your new residence. The address is inside, and the property is yours without burden. You will find the deed, and the necessary information inside. I took both envelopes and just stared at him. My mind was numb with sadness and pain. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a legal-sized white envelope. This contains several checks amounting to the current savings and checking accounts, which have been closed. This house has been listed for sale, and the proceeds will go to you once the sale is completed. All of this is included in the divorce statements, and the terms are spelled out very clearly. The man closed his briefcase and prepared to leave. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a business card. In case you've forgotten, this is the name of your husband's attorney. He moved away and got into his car. He spoke to the person sitting in the other car I didn't recognize before backing out and leaving. I was stunned. Holding the envelopes that the man had given me, I glanced down at the business card and saw that it was Stacy Reinhardt. That name caused a bolt of anger to course down my back, but it quickly died. Stacy was a problem only in my own head. I knew that, but I had used it over the years as a wedge to make Ty feel guilty. Now I knew better. But it didn't help to look up and see her walking toward me. "Hello, Bridget. You're not looking so well today. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Ty asked me to handle things in his absence. In case you're wondering and have lots of questions, I can give you some answers. First, Ty retired effective Friday. We all had a party for him. It was a great party, and lots of people came to see him off. Too bad you missed it. But then, you had other things more important, didn't you? Second, this house has been turned over to a realtor for sale. You signed your name to a power of attorney some time ago, and Ty used it to transfer the title into his name. But don't worry, the proceeds are all for you. Ty left it to you in the divorce. He also bought you a nice bungalow, paid for and furnished. Your children can take you there. Finally, Ty gave me full power to act in his behalf in the divorce and all his affairs here in the States. Ty has left the country, and I believe it is his intention not to return for some time." She stood there watching me as I digested the things she told me. It was as if each was a hammer that pounded the stake in my heart deeper and deeper. I was almost gasping for breath at the suddenness with which my life had collapsed in on me. I opened my mouth to ask questions, but nothing came out. I realized that I was smacked by a man whom I had blindly betrayed and disrespected so easily. A man that I knew in my heart was the only man I could ever love. Now I had lost his love, and I had no idea what to do. Suddenly, I was more alone than I had been over the last 20 years. I had my children and my life, but my anchor to all I cared about in this world had left me. I had never felt so alone in my life. I can't know why you did this to Tyson, Bridget. I know from working with him for the last 15 years that he loved you and his children more than anything in this life. When he found out what you were doing, it almost homicided him. Roger and I helped him through the crisis he was in and made sure he stayed calm enough to make plans to deal with you. We made sure he didn't do anything foolish. Just so you know, he considered self-damage, but we talked him out of it by reminding him of your children. He's with someone else. Now that also helped him through the crisis you caused by your actions. It's not important who she is, just that she is with him and will care for him as this slowly runs its course. Tyson will not agree to talk to you, and he doesn't care if you fight the divorce. That will be in my hands, not his. So do what you will. Just know that Tyson is out of your life and will never be back." She turned and walked back to her car. Without looking back, she got into the passenger side of the car, and it left. I walked slowly down the drive to my children, who were standing together beside the cars. I had to face them and listen to their anger and condemnation. But I really didn't care anymore. I had betrayed my husband, their father, and I had lost him, and nothing else mattered. Their anger at me would not make any difference. Nothing they could say or do could hurt any more than the words I heard from Ty just that morning. God, how they hurt. And all he did was state the truth as he saw it. As I stopped in front of Jake and Tessa, my grief brought me to my knees. Jake reached down and helped me to stand, but there was no concern on his face. As I looked at him, I saw anger, disgust, disappointment, but no concern. That was painful to me, and I began to sob. And instead of holding me, my daughter stood in front of me with her arms crossed over her chest and her face mirroring that of her brother. I had told myself that I couldn't hurt any worse after losing Ty in my marriage. but the looks on the faces of my children told me in no uncertain terms exactly how they saw what I did, and it was even worse. I cried for what I had lost. As my children stood by and waited, they offered no comfort. I had lost them as well. I turned and looked once more at the home Ty and I had purchased to build our family. I loved that house and had always felt pride when I came home. Now it was gone. Everything was gone. My husband, my marriage, the love of my children, and the home we shared. What have I done? Why did I never think of the consequences of my actions? Why had I never considered that? I knew now consequences are a whinge.